The stars pulsed like ancient runes in the dark, cold tapestry of the void. For centuries, the galaxy had known relative peace. The United Federations of Systems, an alliance forged through blood, treaties, and the slow erosion of mistrust, spanned thousands of worlds. Species once on the brink of annihilation now shared technologies, cultures, and a cautious optimism. The great wars were behind them, or so they believed. High above the gas giant Tavros 9, the orbital observatory Seeker's reach floated silently, its hull ringed with sensor arrays that whispered to the stars. Within its central chamber, Chief Analyst Zalrek hovered before a holographic star map, all six his fingers twitching in controlled agitation. Zalrek, an Althonian with bioluminescent skin and a mind calibrated for pattern recognition, stared at a sequence of signals that defied classification. They pulsed in a language too precise for nature, too elegant for random error. "This can't be right," he muttered. "Nothing's crossed the void line since the humans vanished," said a voice from behind. Captain Tessa Moran of the Draxian Naval Corps stepped forward, her digitized insignia flickering over her carbon fiber chestplate. She was young by Draxian standards, but her eyes bore the hardness of someone who'd seen enough border skirmishes to lose faith in luck. "That's what you're thinking." Zalrek didn't respond immediately. His gaze remained fixed on the data stream, which pulsed now in rhythmic intervals, repeating, deliberate. It formed a pattern almost like a heartbeat. "I don't believe in ghosts," he said finally, "but this feels like a pulse from the dead." Thessa narrowed her eyes. "Show me the origin point." A blink of light. The map zoomed outward until it centered on a small, uninhabited sector long, considered untraversable. Sector X-9A, a dead zone of collapsed wormholes and gravity shears. No sane vessel ventured near it. "Impossible," Thessa whispered. "There's nothing there. Nothing should be there." As if an answer, a second pulse struck the observatory sensors. Stronger, closer. A low warning tone rippled through the observatory's command deck. Lights dimmed, screens shimmered with interference. "Gravitic distortion detected," a mechanical voice announced. Zalrek turned sharply. That came from inside the system. Thessa tapped her comms. "Command, this is MYRN. We have a Class X anomaly. Initiate full sensor sweep. Scramble long-range probes and prepare for immediate departure." The voice that responded crackled with panic. "Too late. Object entering real space." Repeat, unknown vessel emerging from the distortion. On the outer edge of Tavros 9's orbit, space split like torn fabric. No light burst. No energy surge. Just rupture. A triangular shape slid through the rift, black as vacuum, smooth and angular, casting no reflection even against the star's corona. The observatory's AI tried to scan it. Failed. Its engines flared silent, blue-white points burning with cold intensity. No communication. No identification. Thessa felt her blood chill. "Is that human?" Zalrek's throat pulsed with stress hormones. "It's not a ship," he said softly. "It's a message." Far from Tavros 9, deep in the high citadel orbiting Galen Prime, the Galactic Council convened in an emergency session. Delegates from every major race filled the crystalline chamber, their holographic projections flickering around the central dais. The warship did not answer hails, intoned the Corellon speaker, voice sharp with indignation. It simply hovered. Our patrol fleet approached, and it triggered a system-wide failure without launching a single weapon. "It disabled our ships?" A Pyrrhic representative boomed, his body flaming with agitation. "That is an act of aggression." "Or a warning," said a calm, melodic voice, High Speaker Vero the Ellerin. Her species rarely engaged in conflict, but even her tranquil tones could not mask concern. "You all know the stories. You all chose to forget." The chamber fell into uneasy silence. The stories, the ancient records of humanity, once a part of the Galactic Alliance, once brilliant, unpredictable, and dangerous, had been sealed centuries ago. Humanity had vanished without war, without farewell. Just gone. Now it seemed they were back, and they hadn't come to talk. Commander Valen Hart watched the alien observatory through the curved canopy of his warship. The ship, the Eidolon, hummed with restrained power, its AI linked to his nervous system. His body, sculpted by generations of engineered evolution, sat motionless, but his mind danced through command trees, surveillance logs, and pulse-wave resonance analytics. Observation Probe Theta 9 has detected the Council fleet preparing to mobilize. The AI whispered directly into his neural band. Their configuration suggests they are unsure whether to flee or fight. They'll do both, Valen replied. They always do. He looked younger than most expected. A deliberate design. A symbol of continuity. Of renewal. The Terran ascendancy had not come seeking peace, nor conquest. They had come for restoration. Behind him, 10 more warships lurked in slip space, cloaked and waiting. He would not need them. The message had already been sent. Give them time, he said aloud, voice steady. Let them wonder. Let them fear. Back at Seeker's Reach, Dessa watched a retreating silhouette of the warship as it slipped silently past Tavros 9 and vanished into the dark. It hadn't attacked. It hadn't replied. It simply passed through like a phantom from a forgotten war. Zalrex sat beside her in silence, his eyes sunken. You think it'll come back? She asked. He didn't answer at first. Then, quietly, that wasn't the first, just a scout. Thessa looked out the viewport one last time, then turned away. Somewhere, deep in the void, something ancient had stirred. The dead stars whispered return, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Eidolon hung in orbit like a silent verdict, its black hull absorbing starlight and sensors alike. No other vessel in the galaxy matched its presence. It didn't shimmer or flicker through cloaking. It existed as though it had always belonged here, a truth the galaxy had forgotten. For those watching from afar, it didn't move. It loomed. Inside the command cradle, Commander Valen Hart remained still, his breath steady, his eyes closed. To an observer, he might have appeared to be meditating, but within the neural cocoon, his mind was alive with data streams, ship diagnostics, planetary telemetry, and interlinked AI threads humming beneath his consciousness. Each thought moved through interfaces faster than light, each command executed without hesitation. A soft vibration pulsed through the cradle as the ship signaled completion of a deep scan of the planetary system. Valen's eyes opened, clear and cold, glinting with a glacial resolve. The galaxy hadn't changed nearly as much as it thought. The weak still ruled through alliances, illusions of stability cloaked in bureaucracy. And now, humanity had returned, not for conquest, but for remembrance. All systems primed. No resistance detected in this quadrant. The ship's AI said, its voice neither male nor female, purposely neutral, a calculated calm. They're still measuring us, Valen replied. We gave them a glimpse, enough for terror. Now, they're waiting for their fear to become strategy. He rose from the cradle, his footsteps barely audible against the carbon steel floor. The command deck's architecture wrapped around him like a crown. No consoles, no buttons. Just motion, thought, and the pulse of readiness. Open communications array. One-way burst of Terran Ascendancy Central Archive. A moment passed. Ready. Valen didn't hesitate. First contact achieved. Response. Hesitant, non-aggressive. Initiating Phase 2. Deploy Observation Unit Sigma 7 to Virelia System. Awaiting confirmation for fleet staging zones. The signal launch, encoded beyond alien comprehension. Somewhere in deep void sectors, other captains received it. Other warships stirred. At that same moment, across the galactic veil, the Council's emergency fleet assembled in the Virelia sector. 18 capital ships, dozens of cruisers, and hundreds of fighters. The air in their briefing chambers was thick with uncertainty. No one had seen a direct confrontation. No weapons had been fired. And yet entire systems had shut down, AI cores had collapsed, and sensor logs had been rewritten in real time. The fleet's generals argued over semantics. Was this war, or was it a demonstration? Admiral Sorov, a Varani War veteran with titanium-scale armor fused to his exoskeleton, barked the decision everyone feared. No more waiting. We intercept. We assess in person. His declaration echoed through the fleet. Engines flared. Coordinates locked. They moved toward Tavros 9. but they never arrived. The moment the fleet entered hyperspace, every ship received the same message. A simple image file, transmitted via legacy subspace band, a triangular silhouette. A single phrase beneath it, in ancient galactic standard. We remember, one by one, ships dropped out of hyperspace prematurely. Systems shut down. Guidance arrays spun wildly. AI assistants stuttered and collapsed. Half the fleet was stranded. The other half found itself circling a warship that hadn't moved, hadn't fired, hadn't even acknowledged them, and yet it had rendered them powerless. Back aboard the Eidolon, Valen stood in the center of the Sentry Dome as new data flooded his HUD. Resistance had crumbled without force. The message was delivered not with weapons, but with inevitability. High Council will have no choice now, the AI said. They will either parley or collapse. Your presence has broken the mask. Not yet, Valen murmured. Fear is only the first threshold. Let them scramble. Let them try to understand. His reflection flickered in the transparent dome above him. Sharply defined, human, but altered. Synthetic lines traced on the skin of his neck, glowing faintly. His spine was sheathed in a neural interface. He was a product of a rebirth no alien species had foreseen. Not an evolution of humanity, but a divergence, crafted in exile, hardened in silence. Suddenly, a new data spike surged through the array. A single alien vessel approached, small, diplomatic in build. It bore no weapons, just light, and an open transmission channel. Valen turned toward the signal, and with a thought, accepted it. A holographic form shimmered into being. Thessa MYRN's image, clear and upright, filled the dome. I am Captain MYRN of the Draxian Corps. I don't speak for the Council, but I speak for myself. Were you? Valen tilted his head. You know the answer. I know what you look like, Thessa said, tone cautious. But that's not what I asked. There was a pause. Then Valen spoke, his voice low but resonant, honed command. We are the children of silence, of abandonment. While your council buried history, we remembered. We learned that peace is a luxury earned only after truth. And the truth is this. The galaxy belongs not to the comfortable, but to the willing. Thessa's face tightened. Is this a threat? It's a restoration, Valen answered. You have two choices. Watch or participate. The signal ended. For a moment, all was still. Then, far behind the Eidolon, in the darkness beyond the known charts, space fractured open. Dozens of ships emerged, silent, identical, and terrifying in their symmetry. The Terran fleet had arrived, and the galaxy, still uncomprehending, would soon be asked to decide what part of its legacy it wished to remember. The chamber deep within the High Council citadel trembled, not from physical impact, but from the weight of cascading data. Every console flickered. Streams of corrupted footage, unreadable telemetry, and fractured ship diagnostics poured in, all pointing toward a single conclusion. The humans were not merely back. They had evolved into something the galaxy had no framework to comprehend. High Speaker Viral stood at the center of the council circle, her silken form coiled in poise, but her eyes betrayed a subtle unease. Around her, holographic representations of the ruling species flickered in agitation, fur bristling, scales tightening, sensory fronds curling. Even the Periac, whose very language burned with aggression, sat in stunned silence. The invasion they feared had not come with fire, but with stillness. They did not fire upon us, she said slowly, and yet every ship in Admiral Sora's fleet has been disabled. No lives lost, no territory claimed, no ultimatum given. Because they don't need one, barked Chancellor Yarn of the Tolec Dominion. His twin mouth snarled in disharmony. What is a threat when one's enemies can't stand? They made us kneel with a whisper. Not kneeling, Viral murmured, turning toward the data stream. Listening. A silence followed, heavy with implication. Meanwhile, orbiting in the derelict shell of a former trade station, Thessa MYRN paced the cold metal floor of her ship's temporary docking hold. Her diplomatic vessel had not been detained by the Eidolon nor threatened, but her proximity to the Terran fleet had been monitored. Precisely, deliberately, she knew what that meant. They didn't see her as a threat. They saw her as a witness. "Report," she barked into her comms. Zalrek's voice came through with a quiet, static undertone. "The Terran ships have not changed formation. Their energy signatures are consistent. No sign of aggression. Just presence. Controlled, coordinated." Thessa turned toward the viewport, where the black triangle of the Eidolon hovered against the starlight. It seemed to drink the very light around it. There was a sharpness to its angles that defied geometry, as if the ship wasn't built, but born, and in its presence. Thessa couldn't help but remember the stories. Tales of humanity's last war, of their experiments with synthetic cognition, of their exodus into the unknown after the Pact of Silence. They weren't exiled. They left. "Have we received a second communication?" she asked. "No, but I think they're waiting." Thessa clenched her fists. Waiting for what? Submission? Dialogue? She exited the docking hold and made her way toward the command suite. As the doors hissed open, she was met with a sharp scent of charged air. An unexpected visitor was already there. Valen Hart stood at the center of the chamber, alone, unarmed. Her guards hadn't triggered alarms. Her ship's security hadn't registered his arrival. He was simply there. Thessa froze, her pulse quickening. "You're bold." Valen's expression was unreadable. "You opened a channel." I responded. "How did you get aboard?" Permission is irrelevant to proximity when understanding exceeds your physics. The words were not spoken with arrogance, but fact. That made them worse. "What do you want from us?" He stepped closer, his presence paradoxically serene and suffocating. "Understanding. Memory. The truth that was buried for your comfort. You think fear will make us understand you?" "No," Valen said. "Fear is just a solvent. Understanding comes when you remember that humanity was not erased. It evolved. And in your absence, we built a civilization founded not on compromise, but on clarity." Thessa held his gaze. "What happens if we refuse?" "Nothing," he said simply. "You will continue. You will rebuild your fleets. You will whisper warnings to your colonies. But the galaxy will already have changed. We are the signal. Your refusal is irrelevant." He turned toward the viewport. Outside, another Terran ship emerged from a silent slipstream fold. Identical. Perfect. The stars seemed to bow in its presence. "But if you listen," he said, "we will show you the archive." Thessa narrowed her eyes. "What archive?" Valen looked at her then. Not with superiority, but with something closer to mourning. "The one you abandoned. Every technological blueprint. Every decision your ancestors feared to share. Every genocide buried under treaties. We preserved it, and we are ready to return it." She studied him. "Why? Why now?" "Because entropy accelerates. Your species are stagnating. Layered bureaucracy, soft conflicts, the illusion of harmony. You traded ambition for balance. But balance is not stasis. It is a choice in motion. You've forgotten how to choose." Thessa didn't know whether to be insulted or afraid. Maybe both. "If what you say is true and you offer this archive, then how do we know it's not just another weapon?" Valen nodded slowly. "Because we didn't give it to you when we disabled your fleets. If we wanted conquest, you'd already be conquered." A beat of silence stretched between them. Thessa drew in a breath. "Take me there." His brow lifted. "You're not authorized." "I wasn't authorized to contact you either. I did that anyway." Valen paused. Then he gave the faintest nod. "We depart within the hour." Alone. He vanished. No flash, no sound, just absence. Thessa turned to the viewport. The warships remained, unmoving, watching, silent. She tapped her comms. "Alrek, prepare for departure. I'm going into the storm." She didn't know if it was courage or recklessness guiding her. But one thing was clear. The center of the galaxy had just shifted, and it was human. The archive was not a place. It was a construct, vast, living, beyond comprehension. Thessa had expected a databank, perhaps an immense server housed inside one of the Terran vessels, or a neural relay woven through AI cores. But when the Eidolon drew her into the slipstream and emerged in that dark corridor of space untouched by star maps, she saw the truth. The archive was a space, an engineered anomaly, a self-contained pocket reality. It shimmered in shifting architecture, flowing geometry, and a black-violet horizon that bent on itself. There was no sound, yet she felt the hum of knowledge vibrating through her bones. She stood on what could only loosely be called a platform, floating amidst an ever-changing expanse of crystalline constructs that sparked with buried information. Valen stood beside her, his stance reverent. "This," he said, "is where we keep the history they buried." Thessa took a cautious step forward. The platform flexed like fabric beneath her feet, but held her weight effortlessly. "It's alive." "It's aware," Valen corrected. "Not sentient, just remembering." As she moved, spectral images rose from the void. Faint echoes of wars erased from council records, scientific breakthroughs outlawed by treaties, entire civilizations that had been wiped clean from galactic archives in name of political equilibrium. She watched as one race's sun was extinguished in a test of gravitic weaponry, another silenced by engineered plagues. All events the Council had never acknowledged, all facilitated by the same coalition that now ruled under banners of peace. Thessa's breath caught in her throat. "Why show me this?" "Because you're not loyal to the illusion. You're curious enough to see the fracture in the mirror." She turned to face him. "And what? You want me to expose the truth? Tear the Council apart?" "No," Valen said. "You'll do that on your own. We simply unlock the door." There was a quiet gravity in his words, the tone of someone who had waited centuries not for vengeance, but for clarity. He gestured, and the archive shifted again, revealing a timeline, a floating thread of moments captured with impossible precision. It showed the last days before humanity's exile, the signing of the pact, the creation of the memory embargo, and the moment Earth vanished from all official charts. The scene froze on a courtroom filled with representatives from every major species. A single Terran delegate stood before them, silent, head bowed. "That was my grandfather," Valen said, "the last to speak before our people left council space." Thessa studied the scene. "Why didn't he fight back?" "He did," Valen said softly. "He chose not to burn it down." She looked at him, this man built from myth and metal, and for the first time she saw the echo of something she hadn't expected: restraint. For all the power the Terrans now wielded, they hadn't struck first. They had watched, waited, offered memory, not fire. "You're asking the galaxy to relive its worst sins," she said. "No," Valen replied. "We're offering the chance to heal from them." Thessa turned back to the archive and let the images wash over her. She felt the pull of history, raw, unfiltered, unedited. It was overwhelming, and yet necessary. The truth could not be held by a single council, nor buried for safety. This was bigger than politics. "How many others have seen this?" she asked. Valen answered without hesitation. 4. "And what happened to them?" "They chose differently. Some tried to suppress it. Others vanished. One went mad." "Then why show me?" "Because you stayed in the war zone when others fled. Because you asked what we were, not what we wanted. And because your species once understood sacrifice." There was again that quiet admiration, not manipulation, not seduction, recognition. Thessa stepped away from projection, heart pounding. "If I bring this to the Council, it will fracture everything. War will follow." Valen nodded. "That is a choice. Knowledge is a cost." "And if I don't?" "Then we wait again," he said simply. "We don't need war. We are the future regardless." The stillness between them held like the moment before thunder. Thessa closed her eyes. The weight of truth was suffocating, but lies were already killing the galaxy. Slowly, comfortably. When she opened her eyes again, her voice was steady. "I'll take the archive." Valen inclined his head. "It is already inside you." A pulse surged through the air, lightless and silent, like thought crystallizing. For a moment, Thessa saw everything, not in words or visuals, but in comprehension. The archive nested itself in her memory like a living algorithm. She would never forget. She would never be alone with it. She staggered, gasping, but didn't fall. Valen stepped forward. placing a hand lightly on her shoulder. Now you understand. She met his gaze, 1,000 thoughts sparking behind her eyes. No, now I remember. They stood together, two survivors of different silences. Around them, the archive shimmered and began to fold back into itself, its task completed. When Thessa returned to her ship, the stars hadn't changed, but she had. The galaxy's center hadn't just shifted. It had opened, and through that opening, truth would pour like fire.